What's up, gang gang? So today we're going to talk about Andrew's wish for basic income. I happened to walk into the living room and Fox News was on. And Neil Cavuto was talking about Andrew Yang's income plan, right? His basic income plan. And as per usual, you know, the talking heads were like, oh, well, how are we going to pay for it? What are we, you know? He's running for mayor of New York City. And he has put the idea out there of an income plan.
So the poorest 500,000 New Yorkers would get $2,000 a year. Out of the, I think there's 6.6 million adults in New York City, so 500,000 of those would get $2,000 a year in a guaranteed income.
So the price tag on that was
$1 billion a year.
$1 billion a year, right? So obviously the question is the writer going to throw out there is how you're going to pay for it. And this mayoral race, because it is New York City, it gets a lot of coverage. Okay, so they're going to be talking about this a lot in the mainstream media. There's this thing in the Yang Gang where we don't like to criticize Andrew Yang for obvious reasons, because we love and appreciate the person that he is. But you know, Andrew can be wrong, and I think that he is wrong in this instance. And if I get hate from the Yang Gang, I'm gonna get hate because this plan is horrible. 500,000 people. There are 8 million people, over 8 million people in New York City. Right. Granted, what, there's 2 million children, right?
Roughly, yeah.
Roughly 2 million children. If I'm in New York City and I'm looking at this mayoral race, I'm thinking to myself, great, another social program that I'm gonna have to pay for. Okay? I'm not gonna get any benefit out of this, right? If this is your plan as Andrew Yang, you are basically killing your chances of a presidency. Because you are not gonna win on that platform. I don't think that you win on that platform. What do you think?
He has on his website, which we'll link below, he does have a lot of good policies there. I was a little surprised when I looked at the basic income policy. He has not yet revealed how it will be paid for. And we know we get tired of that question. How are you gonna pay for it? How are you gonna pay for it? But in the case of a city doing it, it has to be funded by something. If it's on a national level, you know, you would have the VAT tax and reducing some welfare. But on a city level, it's a little more difficult to implement a basic income without the proper funding. And the problem is he can't really go big because it is a city. He can't make it universal for everyone. But then that kind of defeats the whole purpose because it's universal basic income, or should be. But that is a lot of money to make it universal. Now my other issue with it is it's not monthly, it's yearly. So $2,000 a year, it's not that much. Yes, it does help people, and the people that get it will be happy to receive it. I would be happy with $2,000 right now, and then every year after. And it reminds me of the earned income credit, the child tax credit. Everyone gets those. No one calls them socialists either. And no one says, how are we paying for it either? It is paid for by taxes. So New York City, the only way I'm seeing paying for it, maybe there's some bloat in the budget, I don't know, because I haven't looked into the exact budget for New York City, but it's probably going to have to entail taxes going up. If it's only for the richest people that live in New York City, then I know that we are all okay with that.
You are the basic income guy, right? And you're coming at, first of all, with this means tested bullshit, right? And second of all, you're coming at me with, I'm probably gonna have my taxes raised, because you're telling me, you know, yeah, we still have to wait and see the plan, right? It may be something that we've not even thought of, you know, which you just magically make money appear, right? That's what we do. So all you're gonna do is you're gonna motivate a large majority of people to, you know, say no. I don't want to vote for you because all I know is my taxes are gonna get raised. And you're gonna have another program that I'm never gonna see any money for. So all I know is my taxes are gonna go up, so I might vote another way. I think it's a very poor plan, and if this is your moment to either go big or go home.
And the problem with it being in New York City is you can't go big. But I feel like you kind of have to, but you've got to have the plan out there for how it's going to be funded.
You're this super smart guy, right? Who we know that he is. And I don't know how it's possible. It would take a mind much greater than mine to figure it out. But he has a lot of great minds working on it. You know?
Right.
I'm sure that Scott Sands is a part of it, the conversation. I'm sure that there are other.
But I feel like one of two things has to happen. It either has to be universal, as in every adult in New York City gets it, or it needs to be a smaller but monthly amount. Because it's got to be one of those two things. And I still think it's funny that Fox News was saying, well, I think by trials like in Finland, but if you're giving people basic income, they're just not going to work. And I'm sitting here thinking, you're telling me New York City residents are going to get this $2,000 once a year and be like, oh, I don't have to work now.
That's just it though, right? Because for a poor person, and yes, here again, they would be appreciative that they got it, but for poor people, that $2,000 isn't anything. What is that going to do? That's going to, like we was talking about earlier, that's going to replace your beater that just broke down, and you're going to buy another beater that's going to last 6 months, and yeah, you're going to be able to get back and forth to work, but you're still struggling. You know what I'm saying? That $2,000, that is nothing.
I think it should have been worded differently. Like, I know he's the basic income guy, but if he was going to make a basic income, it needs to be a universal basic income. He should have worded it as something like a tax credit for, like they do now, their earned income and the child tax. He should have worded it as a tax credit that you get every year.
Because now what ends up happening is, because this would absolutely fail miserably because it's such a small section of people, and you're not going to see any great results over, you would have to study that for 20 years just to see any kind of result. Do you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of if you ordered a basic income program off of Wish and you got it home and it was like this big.
You know if people ordered stuff off of Wish.
You know if you've ordered anything off of Wish, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's what that reminds me of.
So I'm just not sure. I just feel like he needs to be president so we can do this nationally. That's what I think.
Because all you're doing is just giving the people who are against universal basic income another talking point. That's all you're providing them with. And it's not going to move the needle on conversation of universal basic income much further than it is right now. It's going to be considered a failure. No matter if it does good or not, it's going to be considered a failure. And the Republicans are just going to have more fuel for the next election cycle when they say, well, you know what? This is why we don't want to bail out blue states. Poorly run cities like New York City and Los Angeles. We don't want bailouts for these people, for these cities.
But out of the choices for mayor, there's some good ones. I still believe that Andrew Yang is obviously the best choice.
Paper.
Not Paperboy Prince, but he's great too. Andrew Yang is the best choice on the ballot, and we know that. But that being said, he needs to win this race. Otherwise, we will never see a Yang presidency. Obviously, we did believe at first, that Andrew shouldn't even be running for mayor. But now that it's happening, he has to win and then go on to be president. So we got to do what we can to make sure that happens.
And it doesn't matter what we think, Yang Gang. It only matters what you think. So tell us in the comment section what you think. Is this a good move for Andrew, or is this a bad move? We love you, Yang Gang. See you on the next one.
We're going to leave you with this awesome clip of Andrew Yang.
Going all New York.
Anyone who thinks that somehow my New Yorkness is in question should just come and say it to my face, and say it to my face, and say it to my face, and they'll see how ridiculous it is. I mean, if your plan during a crisis is to try to segment and divide New Yorkers against each other, you're probably the wrong person to lead the city.